I have ADHD and here's how I get myself to focus and listen.
As a person with ADHD, I will quite literally do anything to avoid.
So if you're somebody that has ADHD, the reason that you struggle to make decisions,
ADHD and here's how I get myself to focus and listen.
In the last few years, ADHD has gone viral on social media. It seems like everyone and their neighbor has ADHD now. You can't focus, you're highly distractible, in a highly unfocused, distractible world. Is it your brain or is it the world? How do you know if you have ADHD? The answer is probably maybe. Is ADHD even real? ADHD is just caused by social media addiction. Society creates labels to better understand things. ADHD is a broad label for the way some people experience life. This label is unfortunately poorly associated with words like attention deficit, hyperactivity, and almost exclusively studied on young boys who were hyperactive and disruptive to classrooms. The whole label is confusing and misunderstood, which means that it is both overdiagnosed and underdiagnosed. What we do know is that ADHD is an actual difference in brain structure and function. This image is from a study done in 1990 that found that when presented with a task, ADHD brains had significantly less activity in the front of the brain, which is responsible for decision making, when compared to non-ADHD brains. After an 8% lag, however, the ADHD brains would look like the non-ADHD brains. Because there is less activity in the front of your brain versus the back of your brain, which is responsible for emotion regulation, this causes a whole list of symptoms including focus and hyperactivity issues. Essentially, your brain uses emotions to focus instead of just being able to decide to focus. Truthfully, there's lots of reasons why people can't focus. It could be because you're sleep deprived, you're depressed, hate your job, or are addicted to social media. But as you can probably imagine, if your brain is not very good at focusing, that's probably going to cause you to be sleep deprived, depressed, hate your job, or be addicted to social media. As a quick side note, if you experience one symptom of ADHD that you see in a 15-second social media clip, that does not automatically mean that you have ADHD. Just because you have stomach issues doesn't mean that you automatically have cancer, but for some people, it could be a sign of cancer. The only way to actually officially diagnose ADHD is through a medical professional. This can include things like a comprehensive interview, really long psychological test, brain scans, and unfortunately, enough focus to actually schedule that first appointment. Not to mention that the tests and questions can only actually surface things that we can actually observe and are not 100% accurate to what someone might actually feel and experience. For example, someone might be hyperactive in their brain, but not be physically hyperactive, so it's hard to tell that they are. There are also several different presentations of ADHD, which make the diagnosis even harder. Here's a quick overview. Mostly inattentive, mostly hyperactive impulsive, and combined presentation. Also, it's a spectrum, so you might have symptoms that are more or less visible, or they might just present more or less severely. Does an ADHD diagnosis matter? The thing is, at the end of the day, if you have attention issues or hyperactivity issues that affect your day-to-day life, the point of an ADHD diagnosis, or any diagnosis for that matter, is to make your life better. It's not all that helpful to yourself to spend hours and hours, maybe even years, trying to self-diagnose ADHD or not, and have a mild identity crisis in the meantime. Instead, either go to a medical professional who can actually diagnose you, or if that's not an option for you, just pretend you have it. Stop scrolling social media to be validated for the 1000th time, and look up some actual ADHD advice and see if that helps you, to see if it makes your life better. Step 1. So you think you have ADHD. None of the normal advice about meditating, morning routines, or just trying to focus has been working for you. Life is hard for everyone, but it feels a little bit too hard just to convince your arms to fold laundry when you have plenty of time to do it. Step 2. Here's where I give you really boring advice to go read a book. This content is obviously not sponsored. At the time of filming, I have exactly 8 subscribers. This book is actually written by an ADHD YouTuber who purposefully formatted this book to be easy to read for ADHD people who sometimes lose focus halfway through a book. Step 3. Realize you've been maybe doing 50% of the stuff in this book already, about half your life, and thought you were really weird, but turns out you were just working with your brain in a really healthy way. Step 4, maybe some of the strategies in that book you read actually make sense to you, so you can get off of social media and apply them in your real life. Since I read this book already, here are 5 non-neurotypical tips that were helpful for me. Number 1, It isn't enough to motivate an ADHD brain by importance or judgment. You have to be motivated by things that are exciting. Things that can make a task exciting include urgency, novelty, and rewards. So give yourself deadlines, challenges, and rewards. The rewards can be as simple as letting yourself color in a box for completing 20 minutes of work. Number 2, time blocking is a typical productivity strategy that's all over YouTube that doesn't work at all for me, like not even a little bit. Turns out ADHD people have a hard time processing time. Other times, time passes so slowly that it feels like I've gotten 1 hour of work done in just 5 minutes. It's like I'm living in a time warp. So instead of trying to plan a task at a certain specific time, plan it in a specific order and stick to that order, accept that they'll get done when they get done, and it'll just feel way better. Number 3, self-care. This is one where the normal advice has never resonated with me at all. Planning to do self-care feels more stressful than the benefits of doing the self-care. Instead, this book says, think about self-care as just letting your brain relax. For a hyperactive brain, that means letting your brain wander and push you to do whatever it wants, instead of trying to force it to focus and focus and focus all day. This can look like doing a creative hobby for 3 hours straight, cleaning your entire house, or even just scrolling on social media. The point is that it'll look different every single time, and it might not look at all like what normal self-care is supposed to look like. ADHD brains have a much more limited working memory than neurotypical brain. Use outrageous visual reminders to help you sustain that working memory. For example, when I do my laundry, I always forget to move the laundry from the washer to the dryer. No matter how much I set timers or think about it really, really hard, I always forget. So I take a laundry basket and block my exit to my room so that anytime that I think about leaving or switching tasks, inevitably I will remember that, oh yes, this obstacle means that my laundry is in the washer. You can also do visual reminders with sticky notes, but sometimes that gets out of hand because then you have like a lot of sticky notes. Number 5, learn more about ADHD and how it might be impacting your life if you think that you have it. It's not just about focus or hyperactivity. In addition to the stereotypical attention issues, you might be experiencing things like executive dysfunction, limited working memory, time blindness, emotion dysregulation, and a bunch of other symptoms that are not very mainstream. The goal isn't to use the ADHD label as an excuse, but rather to help you find strategies to work with your brain instead of against it. There are so many tips in this book that were helpful to me, but that would take up a whole YouTube channel on its own. But if you're interested in reading the book, I'll link it down in the description below. If you realize by the end of this that you have ADHD, you might be feeling emotions ranging from frustration to sadness to confusion. That is totally normal. The silver lining to ADHD is that there are some positives too. It's not that there's something wrong with you, it's just that your brain is different than average. You might not be able to control your focus as easily as the average person, but you have the ability to hyperfocus. You're extra creative because you like chasing shiny, new, interesting things, and life has that little extra spark to it. Here are some famous people who have ADHD to motivate you and me further. Bill Gates, Michael Phelps, Emma Watson, Simone Biles, and Walt Disney. Be nice to yourself, life isn't a race, and you got this. That's all for now. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.